Secretary of State Antony Blinken is at the UN chairing the first signature event of this administration at the Security Council. And the focus is important. It's the link between conflict and food security, something we're certainly seeing in Ukraine now. Blinken will also meet with the UN Secretary General Guterres to discuss the humanitarian suffering in Ukraine on so many fronts. CNN national security correspondent Kylie Atwood joins us now. So Kylie, this is important, right? I mean, Ukraine is a huge supplier of grain and corn, particularly to Africa. There's a war going on there. You know, how big of an effect is that having, and what will this assistance do exactly?
Yeah, a major effect on the global food insecurity crisis because of this war in Ukraine. And Secretary Blinken is in New York to do two things. First of all, to express U.S. commitment to this issue. He announced, as you were saying, some new food emergency security assistance for this crisis, for food insecurity globally that is deepening because of the Ukraine war. And he also said that the United States is going to be boosting fertilizer production to try and help those countries that are trying to produce grain that is now not getting out of Ukraine and getting it to the countries that need that grain right now. And then the other thing that he's going to do is really squarely look at this problem and point the finger at Russia, because there have been some countries who have said that it's the sanctions on Russia that are creating this crisis. And the secretary is very clear in saying this has nothing to do with the sanctions. It has everything to do with Russia blockading those southern ports in Ukraine so that those massive ships that have all of that grain cannot get out of the country and get to the places they need to go in the Middle East and in Africa. And the secretary was also very clear last night when he was on the Colbert Show and talking about how Russia's motivation for this invasion into Ukraine has actually squarely backfired. Just listen to what he said.
President Putin has managed to precipitate everything he sought to prevent. He wanted to prevent NATO from getting bigger with Ukraine. Now it actually is with Finland and with Sweden. He wanted to divide the West, divide the alliance. It's more united than it's ever been. Everything we're seeing is Putin achieving the exact opposite of what he says he wants.
And of course, Secretary met with the foreign minister of Turkey here just yesterday, as you guys were discussing the leaders of Finland and Sweden at the White House today. And Blinken is trying to be the one behind the scenes who works to create a diplomatic solution here, as Turkey is standing in the way of those two countries joining NATO. It's up to Blinken and other members of the alliance to try and figure out what they can give Turkey so that they are a green light, because all members of NATO need to green light the joining of any country into that alliance. Jim?
Yeah, we'll see if it's just brinksmanship. Is there a concession from Sweden that smooths the path? Kylie Atwood, thanks very much. We have a war in Europe now, and we have really a realignment here, or a return in many ways to what we saw before the fall of the Berlin Wall, right? I mean, you have a long frontier there now, with more weapons and guns are going to be on that frontier, and that frontier is going to extend if Finland does go ahead and join NATO. Is that the way folks should be looking at this, that we are turning back the clock 3 decades, in effect resurrecting a Cold War Europe?
Well, the peace dividend is over. But also, let's keep in mind, it's not just about turning back the clock, it's also about turning it forward. President Putin believed that the United States, the West, and NATO were in inexorable decline. He did not believe that a weak Biden and Germany without Merkel and Macron going his own way, with Trump having said NATO was obsolete, with Macron saying it was brain dead, he did not believe that they could muster a response to an invasion of Ukraine. He obviously didn't believe the thesis of my book. He was wrong. And the fact is that the West is much stronger. Even the incredibly divided United States, you had Pelosi and then McConnell go into Kiev dueling weeks to show that they were supportive of what the administration and the West today is doing for Ukraine and to Russia. So this is Putin. Putin has made the biggest miscalculation of any major world leader since the collapse of the Soviet Union, and has provided opportunities for the West to be far more aligned than we had been before February 24th.
Yeah, Putin, the savvy leader, the brilliant strategist, is praised by many in this country, prior to this invasion.